So, what is reality? I mean, it's pretty much the biggest question we can ask, right? But here's a thought. What if the world you experience every single day, the one you completely trust, what if it's all just an illusion?
All right, let's just dive right in with a question for you. I mean, right now, just take a look around you. The room you're in, the screen you're looking at, is what you're seeing the world as it truly is, or is it something else? Our gut feeling tells us one thing, but cutting edge science and philosophy, well, they're pointing in a very, very different and honestly much stranger direction.
The common sense view is summed up perfectly by this quote. It's the idea that, of course, our senses are accurate. I mean, why would we even have them otherwise, right? Our vision, our hearing, our sense of touch, they have to be a clear window onto objective reality. If they weren't, how on earth could we have survived? It just feels right. It feels totally intuitive. But that's the exact idea we're going to start chipping away at today. And that first big crack in our common sense view, it comes from a neuroscientist named Anil Seth. He has this groundbreaking idea that our perception isn't some passive thing where we just soak up reality like a sponge. No, he says it's an active brain-generated construction.
Yeah, he calls it a controlled hallucination. I know, that sounds pretty well, right? But the idea behind it is absolutely profound. What you're experiencing as the world right now isn't a direct feed from your eyes. Nope. It's your brain's best guess of what's out there. It's essentially a prediction, a full-blown simulation running inside your skull.
So you're probably wondering, how does that even work? Well, think of it like this constant feedback loop. Step one, your brain makes a prediction about what's out there. I think there's a cup on the table. Step two, sensory data comes in from your eyes and ears, and so on. But here's the key part. That data doesn't create the experience. It's just there to check and correct the brain's prediction. It's this error correction that keeps your personal hallucination tethered to the real world. So yeah, it's a hallucination, but it's one that's kept on a really, really tight leash by reality.
Okay, so just to recap, our view of the outside world is a controlled hallucination. Pretty mind-bending stuff already, but here's where it gets really wild. This whole idea, it doesn't just stop at the boundary of our skin, it goes deeper, it extends inward. What this theory suggests is that even our most personal, most intimate experiences, things like joy or sadness, or even that undeniable feeling of being me, they aren't direct readouts of some inner truth. They are also constructions. They're just the brain's best guess about our internal state. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The feeling of being you is a prediction. That is a truly radical idea. All right, if you thought that was radical, let's take it another step further. There is a philosophical view called illusionism, and its main proponent is a philosopher named Keith Frankish. And this view makes an even bolder claim. It argues that the very quality of our experience, the redness of red, the sharpness of a pain, what philosophers call phenomenal properties. It says those qualities don't actually exist as real properties of our mental states. They are themselves an illusion.
Okay, so what is the actual difference here? On one side, you have what basically everyone intuitively believes. It's called phenomenal realism, and it just says, hey, there is a real subjective feel to seeing the color red. Makes sense. But then illusionism comes along and says, nope, that feeling itself is the trick. Your brain is essentially misrepresenting what's happening inside, and in doing so, it creates this incredibly powerful illusion that these subjective qualities, these feels, even exist in the first place.
Now, this is a really, really important clarification. Keith Frankish is not saying we aren't conscious. He's not saying we're just mindless zombies walking around. What he's saying is that the nature of our consciousness, what we think it's made of, is based on a deep misunderstanding. The experience of consciousness is absolutely real. It's our interpretation of its basic properties that's totally flawed.
So, okay, all of this, it leads to one absolutely massive question. If our entire experience of reality, both inside and out, is some kind of grand illusion, then why? Why on earth would evolution design us this way?
Exactly. I mean, you'd think, right? If the goal is survival, wouldn't seeing the pure, unvarnished, objective truth be the absolute best strategy? Well, according to cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman, the answer to that is a huge, resounding no.
And this idea is the absolute core of his interface theory of perception. He says, evolution is playing a totally different game than we think it is. Evolution does not give a single care about showing us the truth. It only cares about one thing, fitness. It will select for any perceptual system that helps an organism survive and pass on its genes, even if that system is wildly, completely inaccurate about the true nature of reality. This quote right here is Hoffman's central claim, and honestly, it's a total game changer. Verticality, it's just a fancy word for truthfulness. And he says the fundamental mistake pretty much all of us make is assuming that the perceptions that help us survive the most must also be the most truthful. Hoffman's entire argument is that they're not. Okay, so to help us wrap our heads around this, Hoffman gives us this absolutely brilliant analogy. He says, think of your entire reality, everything you perceive, this screen, the room you're in, your own body. Think of it all as just the user interface on a computer desktop. Let's break that down for a second. So you see a little blue icon for a text file on your screen? Now, is the actual file inside the computer blue and rectangular? Of course not. That would be absurd. The icon's real purpose is to hide all the mind-boggling complexity of the circuits and the code and the voltages. It just gives you a super simple way to interact with it, like dragging it to the trash can, without needing to know a single thing about the chaos happening under the hood. And that, Hoffman says, is exactly what our perceptions are. They are our species-specific user interface for reality. An object you see, like, say, a tiger, that's not a direct window onto the objective truth of a tiger. It's more like an icon that flashes a huge warning sign. Do not pet. And here's the absolute key takeaway from this. You have to take your perceptual icons seriously. If you drag the tiger icon to the trash can on your desktop, you're fine. If you try to do that in real life, well, you get eaten. But you should never, ever take them literally. All right, so let's put this all together. We've got Anil Seth's controlled hallucination of the world. We've got Keith Frankish's introspective illusion of the self. And we've got Donald Hoffman's evolutionary interface for survival. So, how do all these incredible, strange pieces actually fit together? Well, here it is in a nutshell. The reality you perceive of the outside world, that's a controlled hallucination. The inner experience you feel of yourself, that's an introspective illusion. And this entire system, this beautiful grand illusion, all works together as one big user interface, one that was elegantly designed by evolution not to show you the truth, but simply to help you survive. And to make this crystal clear, Keith Frankish offers us one final beautiful analogy. He says consciousness is like a rainbow. Think about it. A rainbow is a totally real phenomenon, right? It's caused by light refracting through water droplets in the atmosphere. But its appearance as a solid, multicolored arc that exists at a specific location in the sky, that's an illusion. You can't go to the end of the rainbow because there's nothing actually there. And consciousness, he says, is exactly the same. It's a real biological process happening in the brain, but its appearance as this internal world of subjective feelings, that is the illusion. And that really is just the perfect way to sum it all up. Consciousness is real, it's amazing, it's wonderful, we can study it, but we make a massive, fundamental mistake if we just take its appearance at face value. So, we want to leave you with one last thing to think about. If everything you experience, your entire reality, is just the user interface, then what's the computer? What is the true nature of the world that your interface both points to and, at the same time, so masterfully hides from you? That's the question we'll leave you with. Thanks so much for diving into this with us.